What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of On Deck Techs, the show where we talk about the decks that I'm testing and the decks that I'm trying out, having fun with. Today we have a really fun deck. This is a deck that I built a little bit ago, and I've been having a ton of fun with. And although I don't think the deck is quite there yet, I think there's still a few kinks that I need to work out. There's a few probably cards that could probably be, switched out for better things in slot, Kess is a deck that I truly enjoy. It's a spell slinger deck at the end of the day, which doesn't necessarily say a lot, right? It tells you that the deck's trying to cast spells, right? But it doesn't necessarily tell you much more than that, which I completely understand. But this is a deck that I've had a ton of fun playing, and it was built around basically one premise, which was I've built spell slinging decks in the past. I've built Kaikar, I've built Veyran, I've built Vadrik. I've tried lists for them. I've slammed my head against the wall of visit spells. But my thought process was when I read Kess for the first time, I said this card has potential. We just have to figure out where the end game is. So Kess, 1 blue, black, red, flying creature, human wizard, flying. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard. The spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So once a turn, we get to play something out of our graveyard again. So I tried to pick spells that are very good when cast out of the graveyard a second time, a couple spell doublers, things like that. But the real thing this deck was built around was cards like Arcane Bombardment, which whenever we cast our first instant or sorcery per turn, we exile a random instant or sorcery from our graveyard, we put it underneath Arcane Bombardment, and then we can cast every spell that's underneath Arcane Bombardment for free if we want to. All we need to do is to get a Jeska's Will or a Dark Ritual or a Mana Geyser, something like that. We get that. We get a tutor, or we get an extra turn spell underneath Arcane Bombardment, and then as long as we can cast one spell per turn, we're going to take over the game. Now, the biggest lesson I've learned so far, my hope with this On Deck Tech series is that I'm not presenting to you a finalized deck. This is the best you're ever going to make when it comes to Kess. And in a lot of ways, I'm learning a lot of lessons with these decks, and that's what you want, right? As players, we want to get better. We want to learn things. We want to push ourselves. I think I'm probably going to go down the route next of testing a Kess list that's probably going to go completely into treasures, because I see a lot of use for things like Galazeth and Prosper in this list. I see a lot of use for, I'm playing Revel in Riches because we have the ability to make enough treasures. But I see the ability to use Inspired Tinkering and more of those treasure spells, Spiteful Repossession, Seize the Spotlight, using those spells that we can cast again and again for more benefit for us. Galazeth, of course, tapping the treasures to play spells. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. Prosper is going to allow us to get some more cards off the top. And then I'm pretty sure that I actually don't know how Arcane Bombardment works with Prosper. I've actually just realized that now. I don't think I've ever looked into that ruling, but I think I'm going to look into that ruling. Does it count? I don't know. But if it does count, then you have Prosper triggers there. But anyway, the deck was built around Arcane Bombardment, Double Vision, of course, copying the first spell we cast each turn. Reign of Riches, which gets us a treasure in our spells cascade. And then Thousand Year Storm, of course. Once we get to the point where we get an if we can get an Arcane Bombardment and Thousand Year Storm down, and then literally any payoff for casting spells, we're gonna win the game. My favorite is Professor Onyx, ping our opponents for 2, and we gain 2 every time we cast a spell. But we're also playing things like Gutter Snipe, Stormkiln Artist, Papa Stitcher, Young Pyromancer. We're playing things to kind of build us up value as we're playing our spells. I think one of the other ways that I think the deck can get better is not necessarily just adding electrostatic field, but trying to find some more ways to to hurt our opponents when we cast spells would be something that would be interesting as well. But the one thing I think this deck does really well at the moment is once it sets up, it is darn impossible to stop. The deck is built to, in all honesty, once you can get the spell train going, you're either going to win with treasures, or you're just not going to probably let your opponents untap. You're going to get good value, use things like Shark Typhoon and Metallurgic Summonings to make a bunch of tokens and attack with them for damage. Use things like Professor Onyx or Gutter Snipe to deal damage to the whole table when you're going through your spells. I mean, the entire goal of this deck is to simply get your get your artifacts down, get your mana down, and then basically just value off. Hopefully, in that process, you can have a lot of fun. We are playing things like Mizzix Mastery to hopefully end a game if we ever get to that point. We're playing a lot of really cool cards like Crackle with Power. I think I could probably also add like Jaya's Immolating Inferno and like a Comet Storm. Like you probably could. There's been a lot of times with this deck where you just have a ton of mana and that you can kind of storm off by just casting all those spells, but I think sometimes there's that need for a giant spell in a turn. Crack with Power is great for that, but Exsanguinate is good for that as well. But maybe there's a Torment of Hellfire room as well. Maybe there's room for Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Maybe I need to kind of tech in more towards that. But one of my favorite cards that as soon as I read this card, I said I'm gonna break this card is Storm King's Thunder. X triple red. Instant. Whenever you cast your next instant sorcery spell this turn, copy it X times. You may choose new targets for the copies. You guys, I cannot describe how many extra turns I've taken with Storm King's Thunder by just having the right amount of mana, going all in, and getting rewarded for it. Storm King's Thunder, I still don't understand why the card was printed, because I can think of so many cards that think about Storm King's Thunder for 2, right? So let's just say we go into 2, so we get 2 extra copies, and then you Exsanguinate for like 20. You're gonna kill the table. There's so many situations where I don't understand why we put in X extra copies spells. Galvanic Iteration and Reverberate and those kind of things. Those are easy to play around, right? You only get the 1 copy, and your opponent can still counter the copy or the original, and that's perfectly fine. The problem when you have an X copy spell is if your opponent's not smart enough to counter the Storm King's Thunder, as soon as you cast that X spell, it's over, whether they counter one of them or not. I mean, you're putting all those on the stack. Think about that with the 1,000-Year Storm or something like that on the battlefield. You're just going off. And I think that's what I like about Kess, is that I think Kess truly doesn't make the deck on her own. Like, she's not the value engine. She's not a Corvold or an Alayla where as soon as they hit the battlefield, the deck is them and they make the game over. I think what I like about Kess is she allows you to take an already good strategy in spell slinging, and she just basically helps even the kinks out. She allows you to play that spell from your graveyard. Say you need another you need another draw spell. You flash back that Expressive Iteration, or you get back that Faithless Looting, or you get back those things. And I think cards like Faithless Looting and Prismari Command and those spells that have you draw and then discard are even better in Kess, because you're not as worried to pitch a extra turn spell. You're not as worried to pitch some of these spells because you know you can play them from your graveyard. So this is a deck that I think has a lot of I think it has a lot of room to grow still. This isn't a list like Kyler or Alayla that I've done over the last couple of weeks, where I think those lists are a whole lot closer to where they're meant to be. They're a little bit closer to kind of their final resting stage. I think this deck has a lot of work, and my goal here probably over the next month or so is going to be I'm going to make a version of this that uses treasures. Like I said, Galzeth, Prosper, go the treasure route, focus more on the treasures, and see if I can kind of use the treasures to my benefit. And then I think with this list, what I'm going to do is strip out some of the spells, try to get it a little bit more consistent, go through the creatures and make sure that I'm picking the right creatures that are benefiting me the right way. Maybe I can still benefit from Saheeli makes artifacts, so I'm maybe we can try to benefit a little more from sorcerer class, and maybe we can try to benefit a little bit more from the artifact sub theme, maybe, and playing around with that. I realize that I'm not playing something like Time Sieve. I'm not playing something like that, where that's something I could easily take advantage of in this deck, because I can make enough treasures or make enough artifacts to go infinite with Time Sieve if I had to. So I think there's a lot of room for this deck to kind of nail and tight and get better. But I think this is exactly what testing is about, right? It's about trying out a deck, running it through its paces, and seeing where does it good and where's it bad. Kess, I have had little to no mana issues with this deck. I have enough draw spells that you're always kind of pushing yourself forward. It has good removal. I have enough tutors that when I need a board wipe, I can get a board wipe. When I need X, I can get X. I could probably even throw two or three more Planeswalkers in this deck. You know, if I wanted to spin a little towards artifacts, we could play the other Saheeli. We could play Tezzeret. You know, we could play more things to go that route. So I think there's a couple different branching trees that Kess can go from, even the spot we sit in now. But honestly, I've never played a bunch of Grixis decks before. This is really the first Grixis deck that I've put through the paces and like really tried out. And I have to say that I really enjoy this version of spell slinging. I'm in the middle of testing Galzeth right now on that Is It Treasures, you know, spell slinging side, and I enjoy it. But I definitely say that I miss the black in that experience. You can definitely tell where that black really comes in to help with the you know, the dark ritual and the tutors and the things that just kind of help you get the things you need. So the goal of the on deck text here is not to provide you with a perfect deck list that you can go and go pub stomp at your LGS with. The goal of the on deck text is to show you what I'm testing, where I'm at with the decks, what am I learning, what do I need to change, and kind of where my headspace is at. As a brewer and somebody who enjoys the game and loves playing the game and wants to get to be a better player, this is one of those decks that's pushed me in that direction. I truly love it. This is a deck that, like I said, I truly love, and it isn't built yet, but I have most of the cards for the deck. I've just been kind of waiting to find that final list, or that list that I'm 95% happy with before I build the deck. But it's almost there. I think this is a lot like a Layla, where the deck is 95% of the way there. I'm just doing those last little couple dials, trying to make sure the deck's exactly where I want it to be. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. This little quick take on Kess. The deck list is going to be down in the description. With all of these on deck texts, I'm giving you guys links to the deck as it sits. So if you watch this episode in the future and you click the link to the deck, and the deck is different than what it looks like on screen, it's because this is the active link to the deck that I actually have on my main account. So this deck is going to change. I haven't done any of the Brothers War updates or anything like that. So the deck will probably change slightly over the next couple weeks. But like I said, this is a deck I really enjoy. I hope it's a deck you enjoy as well. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the deck. Is there anything I should add? Anything I should take out? And this week is going to be light on content. That's okay. I'm prepping for Brothers War. We're going to have it coming next week. I'm going to be banging on all cylinders. There's a bunch of new stuff coming. So hang tight. Hit that subscribe button. I'm loving my content journey. And I hope you guys enjoyed as well. And I will catch you next time.